Sinnoh everywhere, and not a drop to drink. Wait. You guys get what I mean. There's just way too much Generation 4 stuff going on right now, especially as we're getting closer to Pokemon Day, as we're getting closer to the inevitable Pokemon Switch 2019 reveal, whatever it may be. And this update is coming from the Japanese Pokemon YouTube channel with a massive update to Pokemon Ga Ole. So Pokemon Ga Ole, it's a Japanese arcade game. Kind of keeping an eye on it for a while, but I mean, look at that special feature. Z-moves, Dialga, and Palkia, as well as Arceus. So if we skip ahead just a little bit, we can see more mysteries, great shenanigans going on, but then Arceus using Judgment, Dialga, Palkia, it feels like, you know, there might be just a little too much attention going on when it comes to Generation 4 in general. We got Masuda tweeting some shenanigans, we got a couple of other things just kind of in the air about Sinnoh. There's that massive teaser that we have in Pokemon Let's Go, and also just Pokemon Go in general. Now, the thing is, it comes down to how much Game Freak is planning ahead, and that's what this video is going to be breaking down. We're going to be looking at the possibility of Generation 4, just kind of keep this discussion alive, looking at the development time for Pokemon Let's Go, Breath of the Wild, all the other games. It's like, this is interesting because it feels like things are adding up, that we have to look at Pokemon Let's Go as kind of a surprise for Game Freak, that Pokemon Go turned into this crazy phenomenon, and then Game Freak is trying to capitalize on it, which is why it's one of the least development times that any Pokemon game has ever had. So if you kind of look at it from that standpoint, you know, the announcement for what would be the 2019 game has been around for a while. It happened in 2017, that the game was already in development. You know, we had the president of Pokemon come out at E3 and be like, this was E3 2017, and he was like, yep, we're working on a new Pokemon game, so get ready for that. It's a main series RPG. Turned out that this 2019 game said second half, and now it's been pushed back to the last quarter, so holiday season. So a little bit of a delay, but that just kind of shows that a lot of time, a lot of work is going into this, and we just kind of add the years, we do the math. It looks like things are about to get pretty fancy, because let's take this from a larger standpoint. Pokemon Go. You can kind of plan out when you're going to be doing your releases for the generations. Generation 2 came out pretty quick. Generation 3, now we're chugging along through Generation 4. So kind of using that to be like, guys, Sinnoh confirmed. It's like a 50-50. It's like, well, Pokemon Go is just going to be at Sinnoh, so it's just coincidence at this point. But also, if you look at it from, you know, we got a lot of Community Day stuff coming up. We have a lot of Generation 4 hype. We have a lot of just things keeping it on the table for people. And that's another thing. It's like Pokemon and Game Freak, they've been trying to capitalize on every Pokemon fan. New people coming into Pokemon Go, new people that you're just going to get in your audience in general whenever you have a new release, as well as the older Pokemon fans. People are quick to forget that Pokemon Go was the most successful Pokemon game we have ever had. Unfortunately, Niantic kind of screwed it up. There was a lot of server issues. The updates didn't come out. It took years until the promised features finally happened, and a lot of players got burned out. But for that first month, before the problems became way too insane, Pokemon, everyone loved Pokemon, and everyone loved Pokemon Go, but now they're just like, ew, let's go, Game Freak bad, and then forgetting that it's more Niantic's problem as well. But I mean, when you look at all that, it was a very happy time. It was a very nostalgic time, but that also brought the older players back in. So as you're kind of like having this mix of all the Pokemon players, Generation 4, once again, a remake, it's going to be inviting to everyone, and it's also going to be something that just kind of appeals to the older Pokemon fans, which is kind of what we've been self-promised about the new Pokemon games. So, just kind of something to keep on the table as we go through this. Also, when we think about the development, every 5 years we get a remake, roughly, something like that. I try not to hold Game Freak to, you know, trends and stuff like that, because you can't really rely on them. But going Heart Gold and Soul Silver into Omega Ruby now Sapphire, keeping that timing going, some kind of possibilities happening. So again, if they're planning this years ahead, and then Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee just kind of gets thrown into that, and now they have to kind of work around it, I still think there's a lot of possibility of having some crazy stuff. You know, imagine a world where the original Pokemon Switch game was supposed to come out last year instead of Pokemon Let's Go, so everything gets pushed back a year. Well, now that means, here's how I see it, the Generation 8 has a very high chance of just going to the Sinnoh region in the post-game. That it takes the best, most asked for features of any Pokemon game. That people love Johto, that Heart Gold Soul Silver are some of the best Pokemon games and most beloved Pokemon games, and people have been asking for another dual region Pokemon game pretty much since Generation 3. It's like, how about Generation 4? How about Generation 5? 3DS is definitely going to have the capacity for 2 regions, right? So, I mean, every game, it's like, we want all the regions, we want multiple regions, we want to keep adding that in. So, I think that using Pokemon Let's Go as kind of a little stopping point. It's like, all right, Generation 8 got pushed back, but that gives you another year of development time, slap in Sinnoh. I think that is very possible. So we can see that Pokemon Let's Go having very heavy Pokemon Go influences could also appeal to that, Generation 4 hype across the board, just everything building up and then leading in to the ultimate Pokemon experience that everyone wants. So with this early interview from GameSpot, like right after we had the announcement of Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, they said that Pokemon Let's Go had been in development for about 2 years. Well, how does that compare to other Pokemon games? As you can see, it's like, well, Pokemon Go did well, or all the hype was building up, and they wanted to kind of capitalize on that. They tried to transition to the Nintendo Switch, and yeah, that means there was only like a 2-year time window for that one. What about Pokemon X and Y? The idea of one of the original concepts of X and Y, we began developing the games about 3 years ago, so this is in September before the game's launch, and there's kind of like one thing to look at. There's multiple interviews and statements about Pokemon X and Y being in development since 2010, so pretty much like once a Pokemon game completes, the next Pokemon game is being worked on. And you're kind of having to like balance and juggle a lot of things. So it's like, how far ahead is Game Freak going to be planning? And now that we have like the year delay, so it looks like Pokemon Switch, instead of having the usual 3-year development window, it's actually going to be more on that 4-year development window with a little bit of a break for Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. Now, my thought is that if Creatures gets on board and they do a lot of the modeling, or they do a lot of engine work, and there's been like a tons of hiring and expansion for Game Freak, then that means we have more people working longer on Pokemon Switch. And also it could be like some of the other weird stuff. With Pokemon Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, there's an interview where Omori said, yeah, we had all the newer developers work for Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon because everything was pretty much there with Pokemon Sun and Moon. So that means we knew that the experienced staff was working on Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, as well as the Pokemon Switch game 2019 Generation 8, whatever you have right there. So that's something to consider. And then Pokemon Sun and Moon really needs to be something that we as a team are satisfied with, but it does kind of fall into a cycle. An all-new generation game takes about 3 years of development to really get it to a point where we know it's something people will enjoy. And I mean, yeah, we saw Pokemon Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, just an extra year of development on top of that. Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire is actually really interesting, because that's a completely new game, and Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, that game took about 3 years to develop as well, on top of Pokemon X and Y, 3 years. So, I mean, the teams are kind of split up. They're working on their own projects. Game Freak is always growing. Things like that are happening. Even with Sun and Moon, we had a team of around 120, but it still took us about 3 years. So, they're talking about, like, this large team, and it almost sounds like, it's surprising that it still took 3 years, even with that team, 3 years. So, I mean, kind of figuring that out, we double the team with Creatures or something. We just expand it for the massive scale of Generation 8, and then we had another year of development. It seems pretty plausible to be able to add like Sinnoh into that. That's like, oh, we wanted Sinnoh Remakes of 2019, we won Generation 8 2018, Pokemon Let's Go kind of came in, so let's just merge the two together and make everyone happy. And I feel like that would be the best way of making people happy. Also, we've been promised that this is a brand new experience. Now, people have been like misquoting, I feel, in the comment section of my videos and the response and stuff, saying that's already been confirmed being all new region. That's not true. Like, this is all we really have about 2019. Released in the second half of 2019 is a completely different game. This will not be an entry point in the series, but rather something that we want people who have been enjoying Pokemon games for a long time to look forward to. Once to deliver a product with lots of experiences, we can say we did this for the Pokemon fans, a completely new product and completely new Pokemon. But I mean, there's a couple of interpretations. Some people are taking it to the most literal, where it's like, well, Sinnoh Remake wouldn't be completely new. However, I could see completely new as also an experience that we haven't ever had before, which is existing region, new generation. The only thing we've really been promised is new Pokemon, so I don't think a remake is off the table because of that. Polished graphics, continue to evolve and succeed the tradition of Pokemon. That would be a pretty crazy way of evolving and succeeding the tradition of Pokemon, especially after Pokemon Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, kind of breaking down what a generation is, especially with Meltan and Melmetal just kind of being added into Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, and then added in, like, we don't even know if it's still Generation 7 or Generation 8 where that fits. We had a lot of new Pokemon added in as well for Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon. So, I mean, if we just kind of break it down to, like, how about we just have Pokemon all the time? Also opens the door for potential DLC content. That, if you add DLC generations and DLC regions to existing, or not regions, but Pokemon to existing games, it's like, yeah, a year later, it's like, well, how about we just throw in 20 new Pokemon and keep the fans happy? I would love for Game Freak to do that. I think that needs to happen for Pokemon to be successful. So there's still like a lot of weird stuff going on. That's why it's like, oh, more Sinnoh. Great. That's just what we have right now, isn't it? And then looking at Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, development of Breath of the Wild lasted 5 years. So kind of now going back to the scale of Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild versus Pokemon. Now, there's also like the development team side of it. I feel like Pokemon Game Freak, they're going to have more resources, more experience than what was going on with the development of Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Also, there was like all kinds of crazy things going on with its development. You know, it was planned as a Wii U exclusive. It was supposed to be like something following up the last Legend of Zelda game, and then it's just kind of completely changed as they wanted to push the limits of what Legend of Zelda is. So that just kind of means like 5 years of development through a lot of changes. But I mean, if Pokemon Generation 8, Sinnoh Remakes, all that was kind of known from the start, then 4 years, you know, pretty much as Pokemon Sun and Moon was wrapping up, maybe even going into like very early 2016, very late 2015, that the development resources were there if Legend of Zelda development lasted for 5 years and it was able to be a Nintendo Switch launch title instead of coming out 2.5 years after the Nintendo Switch. So it's just gonna be like kind of a mystery of how long the work has been going into it. But I feel like, you know, development of Pokemon Generation 8 started before Let's Go. Things kind of got messy for a bit. Now it has to be delayed. Now it got like a year extra of development stuff. But I still think that everything is on the table as a possibility, and we just have to wait till the reveal. So that's kind of what I've been wanting to talk about for a bit. Need just a little bit more news to kind of tie it in. I think there's too much Sinnoh spookiness. You can check that out. We also have Shaman in the anime. We have Mallow. We have some Eevee stuff going on. I feel we are well overdue for existing Pokemon getting evolutions and not mega evolutions, which I feel was kind of a mess, but also kind of well done and just a surprise and stuff like that. So there we go, guys. Hope you all enjoy the video. Hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.